Greetings everyone and welcome yet again to another dev diary that should have been released probably a few weeks ago, if not last month. But we get to have a little bit of a bonus because I am going to pretty much show off and explain something, rather the thing, that I've been working on for the past month, which, if you've seen the channel already, you probably already know. But if you're new, I've been working on an animation system for this game because this game does not have third-person animation. When you actually get to start playing this multiplayer, you don't really get to see much of what the player is doing. Some things are there, and the explanation behind why those animations show up is very simple. It's because you see when I look down here, this is actually my player model here. This isn't a separate model, it's being brought in to have that physical presence. But if I pull out a weapon, that's a view model, which essentially means that only I can see it, or only I should see it, the arms over there. But those legs and that chest, that's still a player model. And so some animations in this game that do have these things, and you don't have a weapon out, they need to be attached to the actual player model, and thus we can see them when it's applied to another player. But for things like weapons, we don't really see those because those are handled by your hand. You're swinging with your hands, you're not swinging with your body. An easiest example of that would be, I put out that video of the Stonehelm Siege. You can actually see the player model in the third person. You get to see it fall over, get dragged by the guy when he falls over the horse, and everything goes to hell. All that is there because you don't have a weapon out and it's attached to your player model. But again, these weapons here, they won't work, except executions and impales and stuff like that. So if you were to stab somebody on the ground, you'd be able to see the actual animation play out. And I believe it's mostly to sync up the state of the player model versus what's happening on the screen, because there's a lot of linkages for that. But that's that's a high level explanation there of what is going on and what's going wrong. And you're gonna notice I'm gonna be saying and all sorts of stuff like that a lot, because usually I would edit these things out. I'd make it a lot cleaner, but since I'm doing a demonstration, I'm recording this straight from the game, and I'll be able to get a better idea of if I'm explaining things properly, and also give you a better idea of exactly what the hell I'm talking about. Because honestly, I love animations. I'm super proud of the work that's being done here so far. I still want to do things to improve it. But we'll get into all that later. I think that for now, let's get into the meat and let me explain a bit. And you'll notice that there's a guy over there. That's me on my laptop. So I'm going to turn my chair here. I'm going to go ahead, pick up a weapon so that I can actually show some of this off. So there's a lot of stuff that was done to make this animation system modular, and also really take into account that multiplayer feeling. One of the things that's an unintended artifact of this is that when I am walking around here, you'll notice that these hands are stiff, and that's because I'm currently messing around with a bunch of the third person sort of like animation sinks, and I mean that SYNC, not a literal kitchen sink, because I want to make sure that I can maybe get a lot of the authentic feeling of those view models back onto the player model. But right now it doesn't look that good. Like, let's take a sneak peek. Like if I start sprinting, for example, you'll see he actually runs. I mean, it doesn't look that good, but he does run. And that's pretty much a direct mirror of the view model, even though it isn't. But there's a lot of states that go into it. There's a lot of making sure that each piece is being triggered at the exact moment, and being not only triggered but also ending at the right moment. So those are two very big things there that need to be taken into account in this animation system that wasn't 100% there for the weapons, but as I progress through this, I'll be able to incorporate these things. So with these weapons, there are three major things that were added. First of all, we have the animations actually being there. So, simple example, you see I pulled out the weapon and I actually sync it up. The weapon model appears and disappears at the exact moment that that weapon comes out. and it's pretty much in line with what the view model is doing. There's a little bit of leeway, just because on the model it's a little bit different than the player model. Like for example, the way that the I guess I'm gonna call them the shoulders, they don't really exist on the view model, but on the player model they are a little bit, let's say, a little bit tighter together to where the main spine is. And because of that, I couldn't just one put these things onto the model. It required a little bit of fiddling to make sure that it looked right. Also, a lot of choosing what parts of these spine bones over here are actually being used. And you know, you may be asking yourself, well, what's a spine? Well, actually, you'd be asking yourself what a bone is. A bone, a bone is when you have basically what's called a skeleton in a modeling program. The bone would act as basically a joint that you can use to move. I've explained this before in a dev diary, but I really want to get the basics down here because I'm going to start using this terminology a lot. And if it doesn't make any sense, please just let me know. I'm going to try my very best to keep this simple because I want to do a more technical explanation on Knockout, which following this video, there will most likely be one. But I want to make sure this video makes sense on that regard. So when you look at the actual skeleton of a model, you know, you have all these legs and such over there, and each one, even the knee, you know, the hands, all sorts of things, these are bones. And you see even that little hitch that's over there, that bone is being pushed forward by, you know, your upper thigh there, and being forced to straighten out at the bottom on the knee. And that's basically animating 101. Just move the bones, you take a snapshot, continue. Unlike, you know what, it's a good comparison would be a mannequin. You know, those wooden stick mannequins that you might see, or stop motion. You'd always move a piece and you take a picture. Move a piece, take a picture. That's really all the modeling program is doing. And then it takes all the positions that you got from those pictures and it just puts them into a file. We put them back out. And that's why sort of getting the positions right is very important, because we know the positions and the motions, but we don't really know the proportions when we start putting things on top of other things. So those movements, they may not be in the best way for that particular model. And so that's one of the main things there. But that would be the number one. We get the actual animation synced up. It all works. And I really did this very simply. For this stuff, all I did was take the actions that are being applied from the view model and just apply it again on the world model, which would be the player model. And it just works so well because a lot of how the view model is actually used in the base game, just for whatever's sake, is a layer system, essentially, where a layer would be that you just apply an animation on top of whatever is happening, and even if something else is happening, and then the motions would start adding up. You know, imagine that on a single bone, right? You have the formula 2 plus 2, right? So you add up 2 and 2 and you get 4. But then somebody comes in and says, well, I want to add a 3 as well. So now you have 2 plus 2 plus 3, and it's only for that bone. And that's essentially what we're doing for the animations, except we're doing that with motion, right? That's it. So with that translated, you'll see that when I look up and down here, I actually look up and down. And for comparison's sake, if I pull off the bow, see, right now I'm looking up and down, but you can't see it. And this is thanks to another huge thing, which not even the multiplayer has. It's called aim layers. And honestly, this is extremely annoying to figure out. I learned a lot about the engine going into this, because there's just so much that goes into the rendering engine of this. You know, the order that things apply, the way that bone caching works, the way that you set these things called pose parameters, which is a system that was working with these aim layers and is the reason why we can do this. These things are pretty much just, you do one thing wrong, it goes completely, it just blows up in your face. You can't get any way around it. You know, you get black screens, you get flickering, you get, you know, somebody going like this, you know, back and forth constantly. You get all sorts of things that will then eventually cascade and crash the game, because you're messing with the rendering, you're messing with what's appearing on screen, and that's a huge thing. that you need to be careful of, because you do something wrong there and everything is gonna look like hell pretty much. But that's the aim layering, right? So we can aim up and down, and we can even lean. I also added this back in, because originally when you used to lean, you would move your entire body. I mean, we've all seen the Forum Menace video, where if I look down, my entire player model would just freaking face plant and kiss the ground. But now, you get a nice little thing, and sure enough, it works with crouching, right? And this is all thanks again to the fact that we're applying this as a sort of layer on top of what's happening here. So while we're crouching, we're only manipulating everything above the shoulders there, and it means we can do some fun stuff with the actual animations on that side. And another thing that I added is a new rendering system, since I was working on that. Now you'll notice that that hand goes a little bit in the throat there, which is a problem, and his head also doesn't really point where he's aiming. These are things that will be fixed. Again, we're only messing with the shoulders right now, but this is sort of a proof of concept to get the animation system working, and I think this is a very good step forward. But you'll notice that that arrow actually lines up exactly where it should. It literally is on his hand, he's holding it, it's on the bow, and bam, when I shoot it, it comes out from there. Before, it used to just appear somewhere over there, you know, somewhere up there on the map, and that's because the view model was being set there. But now there's a much more sophisticated way of handling that, which allows me to transfer things that are in your hands, in your camera, and put that onto the player model, which means all of that is synced, right? So we've handled the aim layers, we've handled the translating of the animations from the model of your hands to the player model, and finally we can explain what a pose parameter is. So let's take, for example, you see me moving side to side, right? That's, you know, all fine and dandy, but you see now if I want to move diagonally, it follows through. But let's put this away. If we rotate, you'll see that my upper torso rotates, but not my legs. That is a literal application of a pose parameter. This existed in the game already, but it wasn't fleshed out as much. It almost seemed like it was an abandoned feature, I suppose, and most likely it did it because when you look down, you actually notice these sorts of things, whereas when you look up and down on your player model, if you were to do, for example, this, right? Or actually, rather, if you were to look down, your arms would move. But you see, because the pose parameters aren't being applied here, you can actually see your arms holding in a static position. You know, even if I pull out the axe here, it would hold in a static position. So yeah, needless to say, pose parameters are a pretty big deal, and choosing when and when not to use it is very important, and that's why I only use it on the third person model. We can worry about stuff like that later, in terms of when someone would want to use it in their SDK, in the SDK, and in their own models. But there is deliberate choice here, and I guess I really didn't explain what a pose parameter is. Basically, imagine a variable, right? All it does is it applies a certain number to the formula. So let's say, for example, you have, you know, that 2 plus 2 again, but now we have an x. We have a 2 plus 2x, right? Well, if x is -1, we have a 2 minus 2, which makes 0, right? So let's say we pull out our bow here, we look down, that is our 0. Then we have our 4. No, well, then we have our 2, which is straight, right? Because x would be 0. And then we have our 1, which is up, and that would be a 4 total, right? So you add it up. I'm getting lost in my own math here. But basically, it's just a variable that you apply from the code onto the layer that you're adding there, and that's what allows you to basically manipulate between different animations. It's actually what you use to do these diagonal motions and things like that. You would have, you know, let's say for the leaning, each lean direction would be its own thing. So this would be one animation, this would be another, and this would be another, right? And each one would be cycled through with a different strength, right? Based on what the pose parameter variable is set to. So that is how that whole thing works. And honestly, these things don't even exist in multiplayer. You don't have pose parameters like this. Like if I pull out a bow in multiplayer, you're not gonna know where you're getting shot from. This guy could be up there looking down on you. He shoots you, guess what? Ain't gonna know squat. You're just gonna be looking like this the whole time. That's it. And you're just gonna have to hope for the best. And that really just goes to show about how much progress I'm making here. Now that I've explained this whole thing, I can sort of now talk about it myself. So I'm gonna do one of those. And I want to talk about the progress pretty much. And by the way, this is QWERTY's old test map. I have been using it a lot because there are NPC spawners and stuff here. And it's really good on that front. So there's just like no perfect map to test on with this. So with all these animation advancements, we've learned a lot about how the rendering context works and basically how this game handles each sort of animation or action rather completely. There is a bunch of variables that are attached to the player model that don't even really do anything but tell the game what animation to play on the view model, right? And the animation that's playing, it's not just for show, it actually directly links to things. If I use this axe and I start attacking, me hitting that wall right there is an animation state. It waits, it applies to a variable, but I can't attack again until the animation finishes. It uses the data that's actually directly applied to the animation to be able to do stuff like that. So if you sped up the animation, you know, you would be able to attack twice as fast because your cooldown for attacking is directly linked to the animation speed of the actual thing. That's why with this axe in particular, I'm showing it off because as you can see, it swings very slow. But it should be a short sword here. We pull out the short sword. I'm swinging a lot faster, and that's simply because the animation speed is so much faster. And it's just incredible to me that that's kind of how it links up because usually the animation does have a lot to link to, but in a melee-oriented game, I sort of expect it to be a little bit more hard-coded. Maybe that's just not the way that I do, like, that people do things. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, that's just sort of what I would expect. But it makes perfect sense in either sense, expectation or otherwise. And learning that allowed us to get a lot of good information about how we can manipulate weapons. Because, you know, one of the things that Alex has been working on actually is we've been looking into both the server and client side of weapons so we can get custom weapons. This axe here, this is just a basically generic weapon overwrite. You're able to use the short sword as a template, that's why it still has the same animations, but you can put another model onto it. That's why we can still do stuff like this. I mean, we don't have the animations of like jump attacks and all sorts of stuff like that. We don't have the skill bonuses that come with it. We also can't really do custom attributes like burn on damage, or maybe we can. That's actually something I would need to ask. But with this stuff figured out, we can then start working towards the custom weapon bases and start getting real custom weapons into the game through the SDK. And, you know, it's something that I teased a while, custom entities. You know, I think it's been like, over a year since I showed that off. But it was really just to show off that I was able to figure out, before I even had Alex, how basically these things actually get added onto the game. So we can install them. But it kind of goes in both ways, because we need the client side, you know, the things that's rendering this stuff. We need that to also be there, and also get the networking set there. Which then leads me to the next point. To get these post parameters set up, there's a lot of finicking going on, including manipulating direct variables that happen in the data table. And the data table is being sent from server to client. So I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't just edit it. I can't change what's being sent. And that is exactly what I did. See, those animations that you see here, that's on this poor guy with this bow, this doesn't exist normally. We had to find a way to add these in, and I'm looking at this stuff, and I'm thinking, well, I can just put them on top. It should work. I mean, I've done this before in Gary's mod. You know, I have my animation base, and I'm able to put in, you know, up to 20,000 animations. It should work. And then suddenly it crashes my game or things go wrong. It starts overflowing. Something weird is happening, and it turns out that this game actually has a restriction on how much animations are being networked, not what the model can handle, but what the server tells the client. So let's say, for example, we have a maximum number of 512 that we can send from server to client. And we're at 513. Guess what? We roll over and we go back to 1. So now we're sending the animation number 1 when we should be sending animation 513. And by doing that, by editing the data table and allowing the higher sizes to exist. Well, you know, aside from the developer aspect where you can now do more animations, I also learned that I can manipulate that data table, which is gigantic. There's, you know, so many variables can be fixed up. In fact, the reason why these post parameters look as smooth as they are, if you could oblige me, sir, there you go, is because the variable that's being manipulated here is we're actually disabling what's called interpolation, which is essentially the smoothening of the animations between there. Because believe it or not, that smoothing is already incorporated into the post parameters, but when the actual game tries to do that themselves, it's dependent on a lot of things that end up don't working that good. That's just good English. That it works about as good as that sentence, and then it just goes haywire. It starts jittering. It feels like he's fighting himself to do that lean. But with the interpolation disabled on the client side, and that variable completely shut off, we allowed the model and the animation itself to really come in, and then bam, you've got smooth animations. And it's something that honestly I would have never thought. I would have thought that the interpolation should be on. In fact, if you look here in some view models, you'll notice that it's nice and smooth, and then if I do this, you'll see it starts jittering a little bit, but if I do this, it's smooth again. And that, I've binded a key to turn on and off interpolation. So watch this, right? So this is with it off, nice and easy. When we turn it on, look at that. It's like an artifact. It's like phasing through the world. A lot of fighting going on in that. Oh, you see, and that's even worse. So that actually comes down to the interpolation trying to fight what the post parameter is doing in terms of me looking side to side. And that actually is just huge intel for stuff like that. And you know, I'm pretty excited because it like as I get deeper, I learn more about this engine. I learn more about what can and what can't be done, and that helps me build a better development kit. Because yeah, I've done Garry's Mod stuff. I've done a bunch of other stuff in other games, and it's like, do I actually know what's happening in these things? Probably not. But with that sort of like reverse engineering comes knowledge. You gain knowledge because you have to, because otherwise you're gonna get lost. So when you start gaining that knowledge, it really starts opening up a lot of doors that you didn't have before and give you a better idea of what you're capable of, especially. And not just you as a person, but also you as a developer and what other people can be capable of if you allow them to go that far. So it's just a lot of exciting stuff, and what can I say? It's a great time. I've been telling Alex, you know, we've been focusing on the client side a bit. Like I said, I want to try and get some transmission sets set up so that we can have it as a template and see like a reaction sort of thing. If we start creating custom entities, what can we do? What can't we do? And I feel like a weapon is a really good way for feedback. It's probably something that most people would be messing around with their first time, because weapons is essentially really easy to make. Even if you want to make your own blood sword or some crazy, I don't know, tornado vortex or something, God knows. But I think that that's a really good way to introduce how this SDK can really be used. This animation system is one thing, but, you know, people don't really want to work on stuff like that. They most likely will have it built into whatever custom thing they do want to add. And so yeah, that's sort of where we're focusing on. We're starting to move towards the client side and see what's going on. In the meanwhile, I'm also doing fixes with other gameplay features. In fact, I should do another alpha playthrough with these new animation stuff. But oh, and I've even forget to mention that I've gotten pretty much all the animations set up. So let me actually go here. I mean, if you've already seen the video, you already know. But there's a bunch of stuff in the rendering side that I've done along with the animations. So if we even look at lightning here, give myself, or actually, let's do fireball. So if we do fireball, you'll notice that there's a dynamic light. Oh, and there's also a rendering issue. But that rendering issue, watch this, it's gonna disappear. And that rendering issue happens because of the water. See, water doesn't like particles. I don't really know why, but that's something that needs to be investigated. But let's look at this fireball, right? So this fireball has a dynamic light, which means that it appears wherever the ball is, and you'll see I am studying the orb. Now if I shoot this fireball, you know, bam. Nope, don't come back. Okay, we make another fireball. Okay, let's shoot another one. Bam. And we don't have a fireball anymore. And that's because it's tied to mana. So we can't actually we actually found a way to link up what's happening on the on like the player state side to the effects that are occurring here. And I'm sure in a little bit he may just start conjuring up the old fireball because he will have regenerated the mana. But see, that's the fun of doing this rendering stuff. You get to like do a little bit of front end like polishing, and it's a little bit funner to look at. Yep, there he goes. He's got the mana. He's ready to absorb and hold the ball. So that's sort of the like as we mess with the client side stuff we look at over there, and like just a bunch of cool stuff. And in the meanwhile, you know, on the animation side, Riddick has been putting in, you know, his fair share of work, getting a bunch of custom animations for the Demon, holy crap, the Demon Zana form, holy crap, I apologize in advance for that. And it looks just incredible. Honestly, they look so cool. I don't want to spoil all of them because there's a bunch of neat ones, but it's just so awesome, and it really brings to life a lot of what was being shown in the view model, and also keeps it authentic. Like you really will be able to see a demon screwing around, and also somewhat creepy. I mean, the idle animations with the twitching and stuff like that is just inspired. Like if you see that thing in a dark corridor like that, you turn the other way. That's a guarantee. But that is a lot of progress made and a very long diary entry, but I'm hoping that you enjoyed it, and I'm hoping all this makes sense. You know, God, it's so difficult to explain some of this stuff with it on a video format, because I always feel like I'm missing something. This is why I like doing it over text, and why like those knockout threads are much easier to explain stuff with, because there's just so much that can be proofread. You can go back, you can do all sorts of things like that. I don't have a script for these things. I always tell you guys, I most of the time I just speak, and occasionally I'll start deleting stuff. I'm not gonna delete stuff here because it's just the point of this video. It's just a completely transparent showcase / explanation of what's going on there, and you know, that's the fun of that. And you know, you get more rendering issues and all sorts. But you know, I'll cap off the video there. We're making great progress. You know, legal stuff, still working on it. I know people asking me, oh my god, when? Trust me, I want to get this thing out just as much as you do. I really want to do closed beta testing. I wanted to do it this month, but the legal stuff so stretched across much further than I think anybody expected. But it's important that this gets done, because if this gets shut down halfway, it's gonna be really, really stupid. And I just don't want that. I've been doing everything, you know, I've been contacting every single developer, I've been working around the clock, you know, well, not around the clock, I've been taking some breaks, but I've been really working hard on making sure that everything is done right, everything's done respectfully, everything's done legally, and there should be no reason that this goes down for anything but me just not being able to do the work. And if that ever happens, again, I told you, I have no intention of keeping this to myself. And just like teasing it on YouTube. I will release this. I'll release the source code as well. Whatever. I got a whole backup plan if I can't actually do this work. You know, there's a whole will if I die even. This will be fine. This will get out. People will enjoy it. Don't worry about it. Just keep on. I apologize. The journey's too long, but I appreciate everybody sticking in. You know, tuning in every time. They give the feedback. You respond to the comments. You give me comments. I give you responses back. I do all that stuff. People liking, people subscribing. We're already, you know, we're really close to 1,000 subscribers, and honestly, I have nothing to say about that, but thank you. It's been a really good, it's always been good feedback and reception from you guys watching that this is something that people want, and more importantly that it's being done the right way. You know what I mean? That you're looking at it and you're like, this is cool. It's not like, damn, you're butchering my game. Like you know, it really, again, it means a lot to me to make sure that I'm doing this for you guys, and I'm really sitting down and I'm thinking about all this stuff. It's why, you know, I'm open and transparent when people ask questions and people want to contribute. You know, I have Balaam, who has just slowly been doing a lot of great work. You know, he's been messing around because he doesn't have access to the game. I can't give it, or to the mod, because I can't give it out yet. But you know, he's been sitting down, he's been doing everything he can, you know, checking out the maps, making it more co-op friendly in some of the cases. You know, he's on that Discord, he's always giving feedback, he's always there, he's making, you know, he's messing out the UI, investigating things. It's just great stuff. And you know, I encourage everybody, if you have anything you can contribute or input, don't feel like it's a bad idea. Don't feel like you're incompetent. Don't feel like anything. There's always a purpose for something, and I think that the feedback again and really that communication is very important. Imagine this is an indie development stage, right? We're working on this together, believe it or not. Every time I make something, somebody tells me this looks good, this looks ugly, we work on it together, we fix it. And so again, you know, really big thanks to everybody. It's that part of the video where I spent 5 minutes thanking everybody, but it's the truth. I mean, I genuinely do believe it, and the fact that I could riff for this long without any script and be able to say something like that, I guess you could call it deceitful, because maybe I'm just the ultimate liar, but come on, I'm not going to be lying about stuff like this. It really does mean a lot to me, and I hope that in my behavior I am properly transcribing that. So again, I'm going to end the video. Second time I say that, so this one's the real one. You know, like, comment, subscribe, you know, all that good stuff. Join the Discord, blah blah blah. On Twitter, you know, I've been posting a bit more. I've been posting those behind the scenes stuff, and a bit of the progress updates. So get on there if you have a Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter, don't worry about it. Nobody's gonna force you to make a Twitter. You know, some people want to keep off it. Don't stress. But yeah, definitely thank you for watching. I hope you had a good time. Hope you learned something. And you know, I'll see you for the next video. It's you know, we're coming into March, so we should get a video this month. You know, it's a new month. We don't get 2 videos in 1 month, but we at least get 1 a month, right? So I'll see you around for the next one. Till then, you have a spectacular day, month, however long it takes. I'm rooting for you. That's the #1 thing to say. Except this guy. I'm not rooting for this guy. In fact, get rid of him really quick. Before we end the video, he's gotta die. He's gotta die. He's got a lot of health though, so we're just gonna keep swinging to the end of the video. Almost there. Come on. Almost there. Let's give him a kick for the video. Nope. He's not going down. All right, we're just gonna drop him into mannequin mode. All right.